All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the Parks and Recreation Subcommittee. On my right is City Councilor Corey Belanger. On my left is City Councilor Eric Giccia. And we have here from the City Council, John Dakota, Councilor Dakota. We have our City Solicitor Corey Williams. We have Peter Fatacanti, Program Director and Planner of Recreation, and Heather Larkin. Thank you so much. She's the Board of Parks Secretary, which you have the most difficult job of all. I don't care what anybody says. We have Keith Rudy from the Board of Parks. Thank you for being here. The purpose of this subcommittee meeting is, roll call would be nice.
Council Mercier.
Here.
Council Belanger.
Here.
Council Giccia.
Here.
3 present.
You'd think I'd remember that after all this time. The purpose of this subcommittee meeting is the discussion to view what we do with the tournaments and the liability insurance. We have been meeting, this will be the 3rd time that we've met to discuss the policy and procedures for our book. And we want to review it again because there's some things that we think we should be discussing. So if there's any objection, I'll go to Kiki Rudy. You probably have something to tell us about this. We'll start first with the tournaments and the fees. Want to do that? Okay, go ahead. Yep. If it's green, it's on. There you go.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chairman, Councilor Giccia and Councilor Belanger.
So Kiki, if you want to put it a little closer to your mouth, because
Jesus.
I'm sorry.
I never had a problem before with all this, Rita. Relax. Just to follow along, I've given you all some presentations with what our current policy is as it relates to tournament fees. If you look on proposal number 1, paper number 1, you'll see the number 7, tournament fees. Right now, tournament fees are decided to be determined by the Board of Parks on the case-to-case basis. So there is no really set rate that we use. And I'll explain as we go on further. You'll see that most communities have set rates for tournaments. Number 2 that I gave you basically says what the rates that we have been charging. Number 3 just basically says that I've studied maybe about 5 or 6 different communities, thanks to the great work from the Board of Parks Secretary, Heather, getting us all this material. So we've had some chance to review what other communities are doing. And the one that you have in front of you that I presented you with tonight is Worcester. It's probably the community that I felt was closest to what Lowell is looking for. And number 4 is the actual proposal from the Board of Parks voted on at the last Board of Parks meeting. So with that being said, Madam Chairman, I'd like to start by saying that when we talk about the tournament fees, in most cases, this is not, just so you know, it's separate than rates that we charge for lead games, or if someone wants to schedule some type of little game between friends or whatever, families and stuff like that. So this is not related to that. This is just when someone has a tournament. And when you look under the definition, if you would, on I believe it's on number 4, now, number 3, with Worcester, and I also put it on my number 4. It basically says a tournament's a series of games or contests with at least 3 competitors that make up a single unit of competition and or an invitational event that charges a fee to participate. So any and all tournament, as this relates, our proposal has to do with charging people to participate in this competition. So this is what we refer to as a tournament. So when you look at the Worcester, like I said, what they charge in Worcester, these, and again, and I want to make sure that people don't get confused, especially at home. We're not talking about regular games, for the youth organizations. We're not talking about someone who wants to go down there and have a family fun day and at a park, and we're going to charge you this. This is someone who runs a tournament, and you charge a fee for other teams to participate in that tournament. So when you look at Worcester basically has, if you want to use a non-synthetic field during a tournament, it's a flat fee of $950 per field per day. When you check with the synthetic fields, I believe in Lowell, we have the Rizzo Field, which is the College Stadium main football field, and we have the newly installed Cavano soccer field, which is not even, I believe, 3 months old or 4 months old. So them are synthetic fields. When you check Worcester charges $2,200 per day per field. Right now, our rates for these fields are $150. So with that being said, when I have had a chance to go through a lot of this stuff and the board agreed, we've been studying this for a while, we felt there was a time to adjust our rates accordingly. So that was the reasoning by it, and you're right, Madam Chairman, that this is our 3rd meeting since I've been on the board with your current board that you have, with the new member, Councilor Belanger. So basically what we're looking for is to increase the rates. When I had a chance to go through this, once the proposal was put together, I felt that, I really feel, because we had a group before us that was running a kickball tournament, but he came before the board and he said, I'm having a tournament. And we says, well, that's sure you probably should have said you had a tournament because it was only 4 teams or 5 teams, whatever he's running. But so we had to charge him the $150 rate. So I think for purpose of discussion, I used the rates that Worcester was charging, and compared to Lowell, as you see, my fees are half of what Worcester was charging. When I say half, I was looking for a non-synthetic field for doing tournaments would be $500 per field per day. And then for a synthetic field, again, Worcester charging $2,200, and the 2 fields that we have, I propose $1,500 for the field. Now, when I say the field, it's not other fees. There's other fees that are included, and that's not, the $1,500 is not included in that. And you can, as you can see, there's trash removal, that other communities charge. A lot of times when you have these tournaments, they're a weekend tournament, so you have it Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. And I can only tell you from where I live in Pawtucketville, when I go to these fields, the Father McGuire Field on Monday morning, the barrels are overflowing and there's garbage all over the place. So they're not picked up on a daily basis. They're completely, and I normally would call the Parks Department to come and pick it up. So when you look at, again, Worcester, they charge for a trash fee. It's additional fees.
If I might interject and ask a question here. So you're going similar to what Worcester does, but yet instead of charging $950, you want to propose $500?
That was the rate that we had agreed upon as a board to discuss at $500. Now,
And instead of $2,200, you're proposing $1,500?
yes,
And what about a minimum of $240 for cleanup? Is it you touching that, or?
I didn't touch on the cleanup. It's part of your permit. When the Parks Department issues a permit, it states that you're responsible for the cleanup.
So this evening, I'm not going to do a report on this subcommittee because I think we're going to have the city solicitor look over what you're proposing. But is it possible that you can come back with us at the next meeting that I call and have those changes exactly the way that you want them?
Absolutely, and I would also appreciate that my other board members would, I know for unforeseen situations, they couldn't make it tonight, so I would probably want their input as well.
You're not talking about the electrical fee as well, $30. You're not talking about...
A lot of the stuff, what you see there...
because it's rather confusing the way I hear what you're saying, but it's not in black and white, definite what you want.
Right.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so my next question is, Mr. Solicitor, when these changes come back, do we need a public hearing to support this, or how do we go about that? What happens here when he and the board changes something, or does it not require that?
Thank you. So this would be an amendment to the fee schedule, which is an ordinance. So we would have to amend that and just go through the normal process that we do for any other ordinance. So yes, it would have to come in front of the full body.
So that's why I'd like it a little more understandable and definite as to what you and the board want, so we can bring it forward for the ordinance change, the amended changes through an ordinance. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. So
Madam Chairman, I thought the reason why we wanted to call this meeting is that ultimately, as a city councilor and as a committee of the subcommittee of the Parks and Recreation, we wanted your input before we sent it to the lawyer. So we wanted your input, and hopefully and we also knew that once we have your input and anybody's input, it goes back to the city solicitor, who drafts up an ordinance, and then we goes to a public hearing, so everybody's invited to speak on it.
right, that's good. Now I'm asking you because you want our interjection as a city council, so I have a concern. And I don't know if I could make the motion. I don't know. That's why the city solicitor is here. When you have a tournament, someone is the contact person or pulls a permit for this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that person that pulls the permit, do they need to have liability insurance for a tournament?
I believe right now in the policy book, and I stand to be corrected, maybe the Recreation Department superintendent or director can add in, I don't believe anywhere in our policy book it says liability insurance is required.
You don't need that for a tournament. When you have a regular field that's being rented or, select,
Yeah.
the person that pulls the permit, I think they should be the person, they need liability insurance for that, don't they? Do they, Kiki?
Right now, on our policy book, it's not required, because the tournaments, it's not part...
Is there any time when you need to pull a permit and have liability insurance? I think you do.
The board historically has asked for it when they felt there was a need, but it's usually been up to the board to direct them to provide that.
Well, if that situation ever arises, the person that pulls the permit should be the person whose name is on the liability insurance, and it isn't sometimes. And I don't agree that it should be different. I think it should be one and the same. If I'm pulling a permit for this particular field at a particular park, then I should be the person that has the name on the insurance policy. That's my opinion. So, Eric?
So whenever you rent anything at the schools or Greater Lowell, you can't be issued a permit without having $1 million liability policy in the name of the group or person who's pulling the permit. You can't. And that isn't even an ordinance. That would be the solicitor saying, look, we're not issuing any permits without X, Y, and Z. Other than that, it doesn't even have to be in the ordinances. That's a city policy. It's a policy that would be written by the city. And going back to the synthetic fields, Mr. Rudy, I think we undervalued them. I think it should go more than Worcester. We just spent over $1 million on just Carvello.
Yeah.
$1,500 in a day isn't going to do anything for us. If you multiplied that by 3, if it rented out every day for 365 days a year, we'd still be in the red with the use that it has to have. So to me, it should be 2,500, not 15. And the purpose is to try to keep it in great shape for the people who use it every day in the high school. And if not, the monetary money that goes back should be able to replace it in a period of time so it always stays in a value that is good for the high school people and the purpose of the fields. I think that that's where I would look at that. I also, when you look at it, you look at the custodial fees that you wrote. If a custodian made $30 an hour and was on overtime, it's $45 an hour. For a 4-hour block, it's $180. And you know, that's
Using the rates that are.
yeah, no, I understand. I'm just trying to make the corrections while we're here so we don't do the same thing we did last time. I just think that that's going to be roughly around 200, and you're not getting anything back because, as Peter knows, at Greater Lowell we do that. And a lot of it comes back. You have to pay the person health insurance. You have to pay them all kinds of medical that goes with their position. So that's a fee. In trash disposal, I've never seen anybody get a dumpster for $200 in the last probably 5 years. It costs more than that for the city to get rid of this stuff, especially when you have events where people are leaving chairs and everything behind in barrels and everything else. And if there's anything that's outside the norm, it's going to be a cost. So I just think we should look at those numbers a little bit and just tighten them up so we don't have to come back again and say, you know, we're losing more and more and more. But I can see where they came up with the fee for the day rental of $150 was basically, they said 4 blocks at $25 for an adult resident was $150. But when you're taking up a whole field for every single weekend for the whole summer, the field's basically rendered useless to anybody outside of that.
Yes.
So you might as well own the city property, not
True.
lease it out. And if we're going to lease it out, we might as well go to an RFP and get actually real money for it, because you're basically giving up that whole land for
I
that.
want to make some sort of a motion on that, because I completely agree with what you're saying. Someone that ties up a whole field, 53 events, that's not right. They're tying up the whole season, and they're not giving somebody else a chance, and I think it's not the way that we should be doing business.
To me, that's an RFP. It's not somebody just renting. It seems like it's somebody taking ownership of that property for a long period of time. And we should have regulations saying, okay, here's the number of weeks you can do it in a row before someone else is offered the same parcel. Because how is that fair to everyone else to get in and do it? Is it first come, first served takes over the fields? Or is this about our kids in the neighborhoods? I don't know the answers. How do you, if you wanted to bring your daughter or son out to a baseball or softball event in the city and you wanted to use the field, basically you're done. When do they go out and make appointments fees? Is it January, February?
What's that? I'm sorry?
When do the appointments get set for the fields for the summertime?
People can start booking fields in beginning of January.
Yeah, so in January, those fields are already gone for the whole summer.
All right. Counselor, can I just
Yeah. No,
give
the
a little bit of
floor is yours.
information? I noticed for the last year or two, I think this board, and I want to speak mostly to myself because I have spearheaded this, And we've even advised and took a vote, and we advised the secretary not to allow. We don't, right now, there's no law or policy, but we don't rent the high school facilities out at all. Zero. We don't rent the Memorial Stadium, the football stadium, which we've had 2 or 3 requests already. We don't rent the soccer field, which we had a weekend tournament. We don't rent the softball field, and we don't rent the high school fields. And this is just my opinion, one board member. I feel there's a lot going on out there right now, and until we have everything in order, and I wanted to make sure that we had reasonable rates if we're going to allow people to use them. So as of right now, Council, just so you know, we don't rent them facilities out.
No, and I understand that, but I don't know how legal that is, where you got government money coming in.
I'm sorry, let me clarify, not to adults. So just, you know, we do, the high school kids use them, top priority. Youth organizations within the city, 501c3s, the police youth organization, kids in disability sports. So we will not rent them. We will.
I would just advise that we look at the fee structure and set it at a rate where it's not something that, but if you start getting into saying we can't or can do something based off of selective groups, I don't know how that works with public monies that got transferred over. That's what people start looking into, is say, well, these are public monies, but if the rate is so high that it keeps people away, I think that's why I said $2,500 in Worcester. That's why they're at $2,200, because you're not going to get, you know, your average run-of-the-mill people. And I would defer to the solicitor on that, whether that can be true or not.
Yes, Mr. Vigil, if you could just wait 1 minute. There's a, well, do you want him to? Yeah, go ahead, Gil. No, talk right on that podium.
All right, there's a couple of things you talked about.
Please say your name and
the 10
address
minutes.
for the record.
All right, Gil Vision.
Address?
My 104,
104, go ahead.
11th Street,
11th Street? Go ahead.
right up there. With the good stuff. But anyways, I've been doing this for years, okay? From rec league all the way. You know that. Used to go to the things, right? At the parties and everything else after. You forgot me, huh? But anyways, you know, I've been doing it, and doing it's my love. I'm down there, and the only thing, this is a ball, you know, I didn't know this was going to happen. It looks like it was going to be my last year. Not because I'm getting old. I can't stop that, but I'm still running around. So until then. But I didn't know this, you know, so it goes out, you know, in the fall. They put these, you know, things out. So that I should have been told, you know what I mean, that you're going to go up in price and all that stuff. But it wasn't. But anyways, I do a lot of work on those fields. And so this is probably going to be my last year. I don't want to go through this. But I mean, I don't think you should raise the price up a lot. You know, I wasn't warned about it. I already got the money. And so, you know, I can't just call them up and say, I want more money now. But I mean, I do a lot of work on this floor, on those.
Well,
It's McPherson Park. You know that.
I'm wondering what you mean when you say that you can't charge people more money. You're not subletting any of the fields, are
Because
you?
it's already been done. It's like if you went and bought a car and you say, okay, and after that, say, well, call them up.
What has been done? We're raising some of the fees because it's costing the city plenty of money. And we did make a motion at one of the meetings that we do not sublet fields. For example, we don't give a permit to someone and they turn around and sell it for a profit to anybody else. You wouldn't do that by chance, would you?
Never.
Oh.
I don't think I could get away with it anyways.
Yeah, it's
No, I
against the
wouldn't.
law here.
No, I got the change there.
Well,
No.
yes, John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I get into this, Mr. Rudy, how many members are part of the rec board?
Currently, there's 4. We have 1 vacancy.
And you're the only member here tonight?
Yes.
Curious, okay. I did get a call from a constituent wondering why in the Lowell youth sports, softball at McPherson's Field, that they don't have access to the bathrooms there.
Yeah, that would
And
have
I'm
been my
wondering
next-
why that happens if they have a permit. And I guess I'll ask you through the chair, if I could ask Mr. Vision a question.
Sure, because I was going to say the same thing myself, because I know that's true. Go ahead.
All right, now, I'd ask Mr. Rudy, but he's just been a member for a short amount of time, but Mr. Faganey, you should be able to answer this. Does Mr. Vincent have a key to that facility?
Yes, he does. He actually paid for the construction, I believe, of that facility.
He's not a city employee.
The facilities are Parks Department. Recreation issues permits, but Parks manages the facilities. So I don't know why a key was never removed or taken or a lock wasn't changed.
Does that seem odd to you?
It does, but a lot of the baseball leagues have their permits to their own bathrooms that they built. Like Lowell Youth Baseball has the PYO bathroom keys and the,
So when we give a permit to the Lowell Youth Softball, do you give them a key for those Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
I don't have
Thursday?
keys. The Parks Department does. I do not believe they do. What I've been told happens at McPherson is that if they give Gil the schedule, he comes down and opens the bathrooms for them.
Okay. And just a question, Mr. Vision.
Yes, go
Just
ahead.
because I was an umpire for softball for many years.
fine.
How many teams are in a tournament at McPherson's for 3 fields on a weekend?
How many teams?
How many teams?
That's a hard question.
No, it isn't. I know
I
it.
can give you
I
the
know it.
answer.
You should know it. I know it.
I know, it's 3 fields.
Yeah, how many teams
I
play
can give you
there?
the answer,
You're
John.
talking about that, so.
Good, Eric.
It's 14 teams. It's right online. And Bill Surin is the
All right,
guy who's
Some are
doing the
different
thing.
than others, yeah.
Okay.
So Bill Surin's taking $900 per team at 14 teams. It's right here online.
The total
For
is?
Memorial Day weekend, there's 14 teams, $900.
What's the total on that?
Yeah, but these empires, I gotta pay city,
But,
everything
but
else.
I'm wondering, Mr. Vivian, why isn't it going through you, and why is Bill Surin the guy who it's going through?
What's
And,
that?
and he's in Tewksbury, so it's $12,600 on that weekend. And the person that everyone sends it to is Bill Surin, 96 Maplewood Ave, Tewksbury, Mass. And not Gil Vigent Lowell. So that's where the questions come in, is why are people who sign up for a tournament going through Tewksbury to come to Lowell? It's right here on the USA Softball. And that's just one of the tournaments. And you have how many? How many weekends, Mr. Rudy, do they have booked?
The weekends, I believe, that looking at my pit stuff, from May 2nd to May 3rd, all the way up until almost Labor Day.
So does anybody know, is that 10 weekends?
There's 53 dates that I believe that were given to us, that right?
Yeah, I believe he has about
19
There's
weekends.
only one tournament that happens.
So how, no, it's not.
On those-
I've looked at many of them that are like this.
I know what you got there.
Yeah.
Counselor
I've
Gitchie-
looked at them.
Counselor
So-
Gitchie.
So my question is, if there's 10 weekends, you're talking $126,000 that goes through there to a guy named Bill Surin, you're renting.
No, they gotta pay,
I get what they have to pay people. I'm not debating that.
no, they, with that money, there's, oh my God, these empires all get paid, 2 empires, the whole bit.
Okay.
It's everything, these expenses.
I'm not debating that. That's a lot of money going through that the city is not asking for much. We want to be paid too. And the price of those fields have gone up and up and up and up. The clay, I buy clay every probably twice a year.
Yeah.
And the chalk and everything else that goes into these fields is expensive. And it comes from the city. And when you look at this,
Don't go to the city.
what's that?
It don't go to the city, the things you're talking about.
You do the clay in the fields? Which then again, if
I like
that's
all that stuff.
If that's the truth, then Mr. Solicitor needs to look in what the Parks Department's doing, because you shouldn't be on any field that's being maintained by a private sector without going through the city, because there's a huge liability there. The city should be maintaining those fields, because we don't have private contracts out for you to fix anything.
That's basically my point, Counselor Gitchie, is that if he's going out there on the fields, cost first, it's a liability on the city.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And is he getting paid out of that tournament fee to do some of this work?
One tournament is $12,600. Where the money goes
Do
from there,
you, do you get paid at all to do this, Mr. Vision, or you do this on your own goodness of your heart?
A few dollars, not much.
How much?
I get a few dollars.
A few dollars? Is few $2 or a few like $1,000, $2,000?
No, I don't.
You don't have to answer it. I know the answer.
No, I know what you
Mr.
mean.
Vaticani,
But I mean, the city gets.
Mr. Vigent doesn't,
Wait,
Mr. Vigent doesn't need a key anymore to this. He's had this key for years and years. I don't know why. And he doesn't give access to the youth leagues to use a bathroom. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Basically, he runs McPherson Field.
Okay.
He does.
Can I answer that one?
No, not yet. I'm not done.
Okay, all right.
Am I incorrect in stating that Mr. Vaticani?
Yep, you're correct.
So for 3 days, $1,500 out of 12,600, that's what you're talking about, right, Mr. Rudy? So you're saying if you're renting each day, it's $500. So we're in here arguing about $1,500 out of 12,600 that comes in.
As of right now, Counselor, and what he's been approved.
No, I understand what he's paying now, but.
What he's been approved by this current board, there have been no rates increase that I can see. I'm just showing you the rates on page 2 that says what the rates were in 2023 and in 2024. He's being charged $150 per field. So, you know, at that, he's being charged $750, where the other way would be $1,500. So I just want to clarify a couple things. As far as the clay and everything, we're talking, Councilor, and I've heard you say this a number of times, we're talking about the city's water use, the water the grass out there every day. We're using the bathrooms every day. We're using garbage that it's being picked up every weekend. This is something beyond and above the regular services that we give other youth organizations. And these guys are be deriving a pay from this. And I just think the city should get a fair share. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying we should overcharge, undercharge, just saying the city should get its fair share.
Yes, I believe the city should get its fair share. That's why we're here discussing this. And I also believe it's fair that if a mom and pop rent a field and their children and themselves need to use a bathroom, they should be able to use a bathroom. The bathroom is not connected to the concession stand where it would, go in and start destroying or taking stock out and eating it or whatever. But they should have a right to use a bathroom, and no one should be possessing the key. This is city property, and if people have built this, I put a sidewalk in front of my house one day, and the city owns the sidewalk, but I had to petition the city to let me have it so that I could cement it, and once I did, it was this owner given back to the city. That was the proper procedure. This is the same situation whereby people build a concession stand, and I'm not even concerned about that. I'm concerned about a bathroom. When nature calls, you gotta go. I understand. So this is why we're discussing the policy book. This is what we want to see.
I don't want to single out one petitioner.
No, I'm saying everywhere.
No, he needs to answer the question. I want to know why the bathrooms are not open.
So, can I talk now?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Gil.
Because I can stop this a little bit. I didn't let a lot of people use it, only because they got careless. I mean, they don't lock it, the kids come running in. I always have two people, me and somebody else. We go there and take care of it. We lock it. But here's what you don't know. I mean, I can take care of plumbing, any of that stuff. I did all that. And so I have everything there and I fix it. But we used to do it that way. So no keys, but I was afraid the thing would be done. But it's all been changed the last 2 weeks. All those locks at the bathroom, okay, were taken out. The city put new ones in, and they're giving them to all these other people.
Yes, and if someone rents that particular field and the bathroom is declared broken or something, then the person that previously, that day or whatever, rented that field is responsible for that bathroom. Not Gil Vigent, the person that rented that field.
It's gonna happen in a million years.
Well, we're going to have to start
I live
somewhere.
there.
You live at
You live there, but you're not a city employee, Mr.
I
Vision.
know, but I mean, I went to.
It's been a pretty
St. Louis school, the whole bit, I mean.
it's been a pretty good.
Well, rules are going to be more firmer, and the policy is going to be amended to suit the average mom and pop so that they can rent a field and not have it tied up for 53 events.
I know it's, you
Mr.
know what, this has been going on
Well-
probably 30 years.
Well, John,
Yeah.
Councilor Dakota, Mr. Vigil, I think you were misled for a long time, and I think that it's unfair to you to go through what you're going through right now. Because I know in the past, somebody asked you to help build that place. You built it. It was never turned over as a gift to the city.
No.
I don't know how it got built, and somebody in the city knew that it was built on city property without the proper permits and everything that went on down there. We all know that prevailing wage wasn't used. We all know all those things. It was never gifted back to the city. It's on city property, and I understand that you paid for it. And, you know, at this stage, we have to look at it as liability for us. That's why the city solicitor's here. We're not trying to break your bank. We're trying to set policy across the board because we're having one built by the city that they paid for at Shed Park. So we're just trying to say, look, if we're going to invest these kind of funds, we have to be across the board. We thank you for all the years that you've done this, but there has been a monetary value to a good portion, and a person in Tewksbury is collecting the funds. When it's a City of Lowell field, and we own it, not them, and it seems like for the whole summer, it has been owned by a private organization. And we didn't really see anything. So what we're saying is, it's our field, and we have the right to raise the rates, or we have the right to say who can use what is on city property. I know you don't agree with the locks being changed without you knowing, but that's just the way the law department comes up and says, look, we own that. If somebody goes in that bathroom and ODs,
I
it's
know
us.
that. I built it, paid for it. But
Yeah, I know you did.
But I'm not gonna take it with me.
You can't.
No, I know.
So the problem is that
I'm gonna be gone.
you did pay for it, and there were many people who benefited from you building that, and we all know that. And we're all sitting here saying, okay, we have to move forward in today's environment and say, look, if something happens to someone in that bathroom, you know who's liable? Not Gil Vigent, the city of Lowell. If someone does something in that bathroom and something goes wrong, or with your food, you know who's liable? Not Gil Vigent, the city of Lowell. So that's what we're looking at as a whole now across the board, is saying, look, we have to tighten these regulations. It has nothing to do with you or anybody else. It's just a policy that has to be set in the best interest of the city. And Mr. Solicitor, if you want to weigh in, you certainly can, unless I just explained it to what you would like to say. But I think the city solicitor should really weigh in and say, look, we need to look at this better, because we are building them up at Shed Park and other places, and we're rehabbing one at the North Common, and we want to make sure that the city employees are in control of these things. And I don't disagree with your analogy of that the bathroom will not be upkept as well as you have done it.
Unless he has anything.
Mr. Solicitor?
Thank you. I don't have too much to add to what Councilor Getchir just said. I don't know what happened or how it happened, but someone has to get permission to build something on public property, and then after it's done, the process would be that that gets gifted back to the city for all the reasons that have already been stated, but liability being one of the most, at least the way I view it, one of the most crucial parts of it. And also there's a fairness and an equity part of it also that goes into when people get their permits and they use the fields. That should be treated as all the other bathrooms. And I'm not saying that it hasn't been up to this point, but that's just sort of standard how it should be done. Of just a few comments I'd like to make briefly. So the Board of Parks already has a great deal of discretion. So if there, at least at this point, if there was a concern that one particular organization was using the fields every single weekend over and over, they could simply say no to them. They could just not issue them the permit. I'm not saying that's the easiest thing to do or what anyone might want to do, but that is one way to do it. Now, the Board of Parks also has discretion to update their policies and put in a more, you could put a cap on how many weekends someone could use it if that makes it easier for the board to operate so they don't have to use as much discretion, although they can. Sometimes it is easier to just have a rule that you set. You can't use it for this many weekends, whether it's consecutively or in the aggregate. I'm not sure what might work best for the Board of Parks. Now, a couple other notes I just made. As the the fee schedule for the city of Lowell currently is under 150. You actually, if you look up tournaments, the fee there it can be determined by the Board of Parks on a case-by-case basis. So actually, right now, as we sit here, the Board of Parks does have the authority to charge them more because that's what it says in the fee schedule. Now, again, that's a great deal of discretion to come up with a number on the spot for one organization as opposed to another. So I do think it's a good idea to have, like the way Worcester does it. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize that Kiki was going to bring up some stuff from the city of Worcester. I actually had brought a bunch of stuff with me from the city of Worcester because I do think they do a very good job, and they make it very clear with the tournament fees. $950 for non-synthetic a day for a tournament, $2,200 a day for the synthetic fields for a tournament. So I do think they do a good job. And on their tournament application, at the very bottom of it, it says liability insurance policy number, and supply a copy and a binder, and that way there's a certificate of insurance that the city would have on file. And they provide a definition, they go in, the $1 million limit, all these other things. So I do agree, and I think it would be very important for the city of Lowell to incorporate that into our entire application process. We can put it in the regulations for the Board of Parks. That way there's no question that if organization is coming here, this is something that you need to provide us. A couple other small notes. The city of Worcester charges $260 a day. $260 a day for a staff member. So I think Councilor Gitcher had been speaking on, hourly rates, time and a half, $180, $200. So they charge $260. And they also have a trash removal fee of $400. If the organization wasn't going to clean up after themselves, they can put everything in bag up all the trash, and the city will come and take it away for them for a fee. There was one other thing. The only other thing I would mention is, and I don't know if this is something that the Board of Parks even wants to entertain, but the city of Worcester also breaks down the time of day to peak hours and off-peak hours or non-peak hours. So like 6 in the morning till I think it's 6 at night are off-peak hours, and it's a slightly different rate. And then 6 to 10 at night is a peak time where they charge a little bit more per hour. I don't know if there's any interest in doing that, but for some of these, like the tournament permit fees, it does specifically say in their board's regulations that there will be no discount given for those fees. So again, I know that there is discretion with the board, but sometimes it might be easier to remove some of the discretion. Just my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. Kiki?
Madam Chairman, this is exactly why I called the meeting.
That's right.
The Board of Parks, so we can get the other, the input. And I think the other concern I have, a big concern, because we were giving a letter by a coaching staff from, I believe, Chelmsford, Mass. We should have no vehicles on the field. When kids are on the field, there should be no vehicles allowed in that park whatsoever, unless it's a city vehicle. So there were other incidents, other situations that have happened on this park. So it isn't just one incident we're bringing up, and it's not just with this one permitter. We've had people approach us about running a soccer tournament, a 3-day soccer tournament out of the stadium, and we definitely, I know the board backed me up, and we stated no, we weren't allowing that facility to be used. If anybody can remember back, maybe a couple of years back, when there was a concert or there was something going on, or maybe a soccer tournament in Lawrence High School, they tore up the field. It was something like over $150,000, $200,000 done damage on the field. So I think that's why the liability comes in place also. But I agree with you, Madam Chairman, that the person signing the permit that's requesting the field and the times and dates, and that person's named on that request form,
Right.
should be the person that person or the organization they're representing should be the person that holds the insurance.
I won't make the motion per se, but I would appreciate if you would incorporate that into your rules, your handbook. Do you think you could do that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Councilor Belanger?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great discussions tonight. A lot of points, good points were already made. I thank Kiki Rudy, Parks Department personnel here tonight. But Look, the whole application process here is a complete mess. It's old, it's antiquated, and completely outdated. Look, I'm not pointing fingers. We just got to talk about moving forward here, right? We have an out-of-town individual, non-city resident, coming in here, tying up the parks from our city kids all summer long for basically a for-profit business, running little leagues and getting it at a completely discounted rate. That doesn't sit well with me. So in this, and Kiki, I'm glad you provided this Worcester, as the solicitor mentioned, this Worcester application process, I think is something we want to blueprint. It says specifically under tournaments, all tournaments charging admission will need to submit a full proposal to the Parks and Recreation Commission and wait a minimum of 3 months. You can review everything, how many teams, how much they charging. A Parks employee goes on their website, cross-checks all the pricing, trust but verify what they're telling you, and then come up with a yay or nay. This has got to stop. As Councilor, Madam Chair Mercia stated earlier, I'd like to kick this whole thing back to you, to your committee, Board of Parks, if you will, and realign this whole application process, pricing, the whole process, how you grant permits, especially in the cases of these tournaments. Look at everything, okay? And then you'll have a better knowledge as to grant permission with somebody who's tying up again all summer long. That is ridiculous.
I agree with that. I agree with I believe it's the city solicitor that stated possibly even limiting the number of tournaments per year. I know Councilor Gettier and Councilor Dakota played a lot of ball, and I can only tell you as a kid, we played in maybe 3 or 4 tournaments, but they would be at the end of the year. At the end of the year, not during the middle of the year. These tournaments are taking place from May 2nd, May 3rd, throughout the whole year, the whole summer. So, and Councilor Getcher, I think when you check the USA, what you checked, I checked that schedule. I don't see a lot of the requests for the dates that we were requested by a certain permitter are on that. So there are additional tournaments that are being requested and dates being requested for not USA tournament. Because when you look at the USA tournament, it doesn't state every tournament that's been requested.
Kiki, I think Eric
Just
has
the 13
numbers.
that are listed in Lowell, 13 of them. The total fee that's going to be charged, and they're already maxed out, most of them, is $178,050. On our end, we're getting, what did you say, $450 a day, times 3, say $1,500, and then times that by the 13. Out of that, you're getting basically nothing for your land. I mean, you're getting 19 grand.
Because the rate we charge now, Council, with the current policy, we don't have a fee in there for trash pickup. We
Right,
don't have a
right.
fee for.
And that's without the trash fee.
For, a lot of the other amenities, I think that the city of Lowell.
And it's being subbed out because a person from Tewksbury is collecting the money.
Yeah.
So it's not, and that's why the insurance is not through different people, and that's where the question.
We're not in this city to make other people from other communities rich. That's not my purpose of sitting in this seat. My purpose and my colleagues is to bring in the money for the city, not a stranger that doesn't even live here.
And they get priority at the same time.
Council, with all due respect, the council that you sit in right now, this current council, you voted almost $10 million in renovations in public parks this year.
Yeah.
And I think that's for the youth of the city. If someone
Correct.
wants to run tournaments and make money, then I think the city should get a fair share.
That's right,
Well said.
absolutely. That's why we call this
That's so we
meeting.
can upkeep the fields.
In this new application process will help you prioritize that. You help your Board of Parks, you
There
can
was no intent to
prioritize all
hurt
that.
anybody. That
Local
wasn't the
usage,
intent at all. Yeah.
top priority.
I think people taking it personal, that was never my intent.
No.
My intent was just looking at all the numbers that were being thrown by me and the number of tournaments that were being requested and the money. So that means that McPherson's Field, for the average dad and pop that want to get down and play ball with their kids, the Lowell Youth Leagues runs it Monday through Friday. And you've got tournaments from Friday night till Sunday. So I can't go down there with my child on Saturday because I work all week. I can't go down there on a weekend and practice with my child because the fields are not available.
Well, when
the
you
sad-
change the policy, you probably will be able to. so.
The sad part is if we were paid all along, we could have built 20 of those concession stands throughout the city.
And bathrooms to go with it.
Yeah.
Councilor Robinson,
Thank you. First, I'd like to say thank you to the Board of Parks. I mean, I know This has been a working document. I think the recommendation made by my colleague, Councilor Belanger, makes a lot of sense. I know we've been trying to continuously bring this working document to the table for approval on certain sections and then back to the drawing board to improve. I think it makes sense, kick it back, let them work through it. I think you got some solid advice from the solicitor that kind of empowered you to make the decisions that you already have in your wheelhouse, so I think that's encouraging. I joined this late, and I apologize. One thing I have to say, though, is I don't want anyone at home or anybody watching this meeting or listening to this meeting to doubt anything, because I personally have to say, Mr. Vigent, whether the process was wrong for a long time, which a lot of us had nothing to do with, Mr. Vigent has brought a lot of people into our neighborhood, into a district that was underutilized. Those fields were not used. And there's many small businesses that have benefited tremendously as a result of Mr. Vigent and his team's efforts. So whether or not the city's housekeeping end was in order, that's what we're discussing tonight. But I don't ever want to discredit a gentleman that stepped up in a time when our parks were sitting empty and brings 2, 3, 4, 500 people consistently every weekend as soon as the weather's nice enough. Mind you, it maintains the fields with this crew. Now again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I do want to give credit where credit's due, because Centerville has benefited as a result. Yes, it's been a pain in the butt with parking sometimes, but what isn't? It's no different than any other field that's heavily utilized. And I have to say, as an employee for 15 years, when we would go to McPherson's after a tournament on the weekend, the park was clean. We can't say the same for a lot of places. So yes, we have work to do on our end, the policy end, and I'm glad to see that's finally being addressed. But I don't want to sit here and point the finger at a gentleman that did a lot for the neighborhood. He lives up the street, and if you drive by McPherson's Park, 6 in the morning, Mr. Vigent's there with his team, and he's there sometimes at 8 o'clock at night, still doing the odds and ends stuff. So that is a benefit the neighborhood has seen in one way, shape, or form. And when we start talking about tournament fees, yes, I think it's long overdue. I also hope these policies that we set are going to be applied across the board, because it's not just McPherson's Park that people are utilizing concession stands, bathrooms, Bogart in it. There's concession stands and bathroom facilities that have been constructed by many organizations that the city has no control over. So I think this is a great start to a standardized policy that applies to everybody. And we hear all the stories. We're doing it for the kids, we're doing it for this. If you're bringing out-of-town residents and you're profiting off the use of public, green, open space, which, as was mentioned, my colleagues and myself advocated for equal disbursement of $10 million to improve in every district in the city. This policy has to apply to everybody, hands down. No ifs, ands, or buts, and I think the solicitor already put clarification in place for the Board of Parks to consider. Yes, you do have the authority to fluctuate on tournament fees based on organization, but I think realistically, a standardized format, as was pointed to Worcester and other towns, it shows that we're making our best effort and put our best foot forward to treat everybody fairly, equally, in the same. I think who I know and what I look like should not determine any prices, and I'm not to say that has, but I think by standardizing tournament fees across the board, it erases any of that shadow of doubt that might be cast. So I'd like to say thank you first and foremost, though, to the Board of Parks for working so hard on a policy that I don't even know when the last time this was addressed, and there's been way too many loopholes and gray areas involved. I think we're going to end up with a working document that does pretty much provide us as policymakers with consistency in the city with the ability to recapture some of the lost funding that we've been missing for quite some time.
Thank you.
Especially with this $10 million thing.
Are there any more comments? Anybody Peter?
So I just want to make sure we're clear. We want to make sure everybody renting a field for a birthday party or anything has liability insurance? No, I just want to make sure, because we're going to be charging bigger fees for some families that have been doing this for a long time. So I want to make sure we don't do that and find out that we were doing it wrong at that point. No?
Yes.
Yes, I don't believe that to be necessary for the things that you just described. I do think there is a big difference.
So just leagues and tournament play?
Yeah, organizations, leagues, like, again, we can make an effort to memorialize and codify the different things that we believe will fall into that category, but things like a birthday party or like a a shower
I
or
just want to
something
make
like
sure
that.
as
I
we're
don't,
facilitating the conversation at the board parks meetings that we know which direction we're going in.
Right.
Also, what I would like to see, kind of along the lines of what Councilor Robinson was saying, is not just guidelines on fees we charge, but when they can waive fees. And it's not going to necessarily be all encompassing, but things like a 501c3, because I think otherwise just having broad spectrum for them to waive fees can create an issue as far as someone interpreting the fee waiving for certain groups as being inappropriate. I think if we have some kind of guidelines on how they can determine if a fee should be waived, it would help a lot too. And then the other thing is, you mentioned the bathrooms being used and rented as all other facilities. Currently, if they rent a field as a bathroom, a custodian has to be there and have to pay the custodian overtime. So if we're going to do that for all the sports leagues, then leagues that are not paying fees right now, we're going to have significant fees going forward for bathroom access. Like Lowell Youth Baseball and Softball doesn't pay a permit fee, but they're going to have tens of thousands of dollars for custodial fee to open those bathrooms if we're going to use them the same way as other bathrooms. So we may have to find a different way to do that as well.
Mr. Solicitor.
thank you. Do they currently use the bathrooms?
They do. Like Gill, they have a key to the bathrooms that they built.
Right.
So like right now.
So I suppose this could be part of, so the way Worcester does it, at least generally, as you spoke to the waiving of the fees, they limited it to the only time a fee may be waived as it relates to tournament fees is if it's a 501c3 type organization. Now, I don't know if that's the best threshold to use.
And that would be for custodial fee as well, because they don't pay permit fees, but right now there's no custodian because they open the bathrooms themselves. But once we start having a custodian open the bathrooms, it's going to be tens of thousands of dollars for custodians. I mean, the Lowell Youth Baseball and Softball is 12,000 permit hours between now and the end of June.
Well, this would all be up to the Board of Parks.
Okay.
If they want to charge those fees, then they should put it forward. If they don't, then they should put it forward as no fees for it. I mean, that's up to the Board of Parks.
And I appreciate the fact that you're asking us a question, but the authority rests with the Board of Parks, not us. So for birthday parties and liability insurance, I would personally say no, but the Board of Parks is the governing.
Well, I just want to make sure that we aren't back here in 6 months and then being
but
told it's not correct what we did. So I just want to have some guidelines to direct
I understand, and I'm not going to adjourn this meeting. I'm going to recess it because we're going to come back again. And I thank everybody here for being a part of this. And I want to say, I do know Gil Vigil from many years ago, and I know all the work that he's done, but we have to tighten up the rules because money is slipping out to people that should not be getting it. And I'm not going to stand here and say that, everything's right. Everything isn't right, or we wouldn't be meeting here. So thank you. Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Second.